right. Well, welcome everyone. We're working through some interesting technical difficulties tonight. That just means it's going to be an amazing episode. So we have a power outage here where I am on top of my mountain, and hopefully you don't mind the generator running in the background, but that's how we have internet right now because I'm out of cell range. So apologies for all of that. We are finally here and it's going to be an amazing episode. So welcome to the MAPS Canada webinar series, Examining the Psychedelic Renaissance, Season 2. My name is Shannon Spadella and I'm your host for the series. I have to say it's been a pleasure hosting both Season 1 and Season 2. And like I said, it's been even more of a pleasure getting to know all of these amazing speakers leading the way in the psychedelic renaissance. So if you can believe it, we are in episode 14 of Season 2. And after today, we have only one episode left. Each of these speakers and panels will be showing up to share important information and their take on the psychedelic renaissance. At MAPS Canada, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, we are on the forefront of conducting studies to develop psychedelics into safe and legal medical treatment since our formation. To conduct and publish scientific research and education supporting the beneficial use of psychedelic medicines, MAPS Canada relies on public donations and fundraising initiatives. The funds raised from this webinar series will go to fund this research. So thank you for being here because your investment makes a difference. To view the different studies that MAPS is currently working on, please see the full details at mapscanada.org and maps.org. And a special thank you to all of our volunteers and sponsors that have stepped up to help to create and organize this series. It literally takes hundreds of hours, no kidding. And these usually come down to just a couple of people. So thank you guys for all of your help and all of your support and being here because it makes all of those hours worth it. So let's get into today. By the way, if you haven't checked out the perks from our sponsors, we'll post a link in the chat and you can do that as well. We will start with an interview with two members of the CPA that we have here today. As you can see, Trevor and Jazmin that are already on the screen here. After that, we'll start our Q&A session, vote up your questions, ask a question in the bottom, and vote them up. We will be prioritizing those, and then let us know where you are tuning in today from in the chat. So it looks like we have Kitsilano, we have Kitchener, Strathcona, we also have Santa Cruz. I don't think Bonnie's missed an episode. Who else? Where do we have? New York City, Vancouver, North Vancouver. We have Phoenix, Arizona, Thunder Bay. And yeah, let us know where you are tuning in from today. Dublin, Ireland,
Toronto,
wow.
LA,
Los Angeles. So cool. Thanks guys from Medicine Hat. I hope everyone is safe and everyone is having a great solstice out there. So Trevor Millar. Trevor Millar is a social entrepreneur and owner of Liberty Root Therapy Ltd, a business dedicated to healing and transformation using the anti-addictive plant medicine Ibogaine and other psychedelic compounds. Trevor, currently on the board of directors for the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, MAPS Canada, and he's a former executive director of the Global Ibogaine Therapy Alliance, featured in the award-winning documentary about using magic mushrooms and Iboga to heal addiction, anxiety, and depression called Dosed. And he's also founding member of the newly formed Canadian Psychedelic Association. So welcome today, Trevor.
Thank you, Shannon.
We also have Jazmin Pirozek, HBA, MSc, practices and teaches traditional and contemporary methods regarding plants of the boreal and Amazon forests. Currently, Jazmin is a consultant combining scientific and traditional methods, focusing on remediating chronic illnesses for the people of Northern Ontario, Canada. Jazmin has applied concepts of Anishinaabe, Aski Nation, health transformation perspectives in her work to combine traditional and contemporary health practices to create better access to integrative medicine for all. Jazmin founded Boom Bay Integrative Healing and Learning Centre on beautiful Lake of the Woods, Kenora, Ontario, which is set to continue construction into 2021. And Jazmin is now officially a board member for the CPA. So welcome, Jazmin. So Trevor and Jazmin will speak to what the Canadian Psychedelic Association is, what the role seeks to serve in the psychedelic space. So we're going to start off with a few questions for them, and then we're going to get into questions from the audience. So how are you guys doing? Are you ready?
I'm really good. Jazmin, how you doing?
Sounds like we can't hear her. Beth, if you're in the background, can you see if we can get some audio from Jazmin? Do you maybe have to push the button on your headset there?
Muted or something? Maybe the headset won't work.
Okay. Let's see, try taking it off.
How's that?
That's good, but the echo.
No. No.
That sounds okay now.
Well, perhaps if Trevor, maybe if you could call Jazmin on her phone.
Yeah, why don't we do that? That would work quite well, actually.
We'll
so you stay muted there, Jazmin. I'll call you on the phone and put you on speaker. Good quick thinking, Shannon.
We'll see if we can get some voice in here. And if not, I'm amazing at lip reading. I can do some voice dubbing, and we'll see. No, just kidding. We won't do that.
Yeah. Can you say if you were Jazmin?
Hello? Can you hear me okay? Frozen.
Oh, I can hear you good here.
I can hear her good.
There's a really long lag.
Okay, good. She can hear you. So let's just do this. This will be your mic.
There is a lag, but I can hear her. So when she's answering the questions, we'll just let her chat and it'll just go smoothly. So it should be fine. So I'll let you guys know the first question. And Jazmin, if you want to start out, and then once you're done, we can go to Trevor. So the first question is, we're talking about the CPA tonight, but I first want to find out about both of you because you're both very important people. And the question is, how did you both get involved in psychedelic work? You must have some kind of healing story. So how did you get involved in psychedelic work? So Jazmin, if you want to go first. Did we just lose Trevor? It must be the solstice, I tell you. Don't worry, guys. We'll get things back on track here. First rule of the webinar, strongly encourage all guests to use weird connections.
Okay, looks like I'm back.
Yeah, he's back. Okay.
All right, keep going, Jazmin.
So should we have her start again? Where did we lose you?
Yeah, okay. So when I was 26, I had some numbness in my feet, went to the doctors, had a number of tests done. They think that I was going to develop MS. And so I didn't like the options of the medications that they were going to give me. And so I found a medicine man, and I tried to search my area for a medicine man. And many of them didn't really know, how to help me. So I found Juan Flores Salazar in the Peruvian Amazon and Mayantuyacu. And I started dieting with the teacher. And once I started dieting with the teacher and drinking the ayahuasca, my symptoms alleviated and continue to be alleviating. So that's pretty much it. And then so as a student of Juan Flores, I teach others how to prepare barks and trees and plants to diet with, to do a dieta, like not like a Western diet, but do a dieta and help ourselves to recover our own bodies. So that's why I go to the northern communities and I teach others how to do that. Yeah.
Beautiful. And I came into the psychedelic space through a desire to try and help Vancouver's downtown east side. After September 11th, 2001, I was very distraught with the state of the world and started looking at ways that I could give back and make the world a bit better place. And I was new to Vancouver. I turned my attention to the downtown east side, and without any, no skill set that should really... Now we're getting feedback from Jazmin.
That's me.
I don't know how to fix it.
If you just mute your phone, there you go.
Yeah, let me do that.
Keep her on, but mute
Okay,
her.
good. So then, I really had no skills that you would typically think would be able to accomplish anything like helping the downtown east side, but I figured that might be an asset, just kind of a fresh perspective on the neighborhood, and that basically turned into about a 10-year networking and research project, and I made a lot of great contacts.
Can you guys hear Trevor, or is he breaking up again?
And in the meantime, I was invited to become a paid landscape, and we also
It says you're breaking up. Do you have your Wi-Fi on your phone?
Yeah, how's that?
If you maybe turn the Wi-Fi off, that's better. I can hear you now.
Cool. I think that's better. It's because
So if you
my phone was too tacked. It was holding Jazmin and it was my hotspot for a second there.
If you start again, we should be good. We've got lots of time, so we still have another hour.
All right. Anyway, sorry if that was breaking up too badly. I don't know what you heard, but essentially I started looking at different ways to help out, and this plant medicine called Ibogaine came on my radar. I did a bit of a dive into that, met somebody who was able to work with the medicine, knew what he was doing, created my business Liberty Root Therapy Ltd, and started treating people mostly for opioid use disorder. We would do pro bono work as well for residents of the downtown east side, other people who couldn't necessarily afford the treatment, and treated about 250. I've sat with about 100 people in total now in my life, and in the meantime was invited to become a part of MAPS Canada as a member of the board. And in the last year, we've formed the Canadian Psychedelic Association as well, which is working in alliance with MAPS Canada. My own personal healing, I really have found plant medicines and psychedelics in general to be very powerful spiritual tools. I consider myself a spiritual person, and kind of consciously came upon the spiritual path about 20 years ago when I started looking into how to help the world. That was largely inspired by my spiritual path, and it's just been there. I always say that psychedelics are, it's not like they necessarily add anything to you, it's just they're very good at clearing out the crap from inside you. So it's like you're seeing life through a pane of glass, and as you suffer traumas and have your heart broken, that glass gets dirty, and then you do a good therapeutic psychedelic session or a ceremonial psychedelic session, and it's like cleaning that glass from the inside out, and then you're like, oh, actually life is quite awesome. So I found psychedelics to be a really great and life enhancing for me personally.
Well, perfect. Thank you, Trevor. So let's get into what the CPA is. And since you're one of the founders and currently one of obviously the longest members of the CPA, I'll get you to start off with this question. But just tell us who the CPA is, what you do, and maybe a little bit about the history. So how did the CPA get started?
Yeah, for sure. So in last June, there was a group of 32 people. Everyone had worked somewhat professionally within the plant medicine community for at least 5 years or more. We had an event where these 32 people were invited, and the kind of theme around the invitation was, what can we do as psychedelics become more mainstream? What can we do in order to ensure that the kind of greedy for-profit model that to some degree came into the cannabis space, how do we make sure that doesn't happen with psychedelics? So we had a great few-day-long retreat, and out of that, plus at the same time, there was a group that was focused upon making sure that ketamine stayed within a legal framework. And these two groups kind of joined together. And as those groups joined together, like, why don't we do what we can to represent all the medicine other than just ketamine? Because that was, as I say, a component there. And we said, can we be bold enough to call this the Canadian Psychedelic Association? And a couple of metaphors we've used in the formation of the Canadian Psychedelic Association, which was registered as a nonprofit a year ago. It was December 31st last year. And we see the CPA as first a beacon, so creating a light where we're like, oh, there is a Canadian Psychedelic Association. People can turn their attention anybody that's interested in these medicines, this is where you can come to. So almost creating a lighthouse that people can see. And then at the same time, we want to be almost a tent or an umbrella where anybody who is interested in these substances within Canada can come to discuss the different nuances of what it means to work with psychedelics. Whether you're a professional, like a doctor, we have a doctor board of directors, we have other professionals on our board of directors, or you're a fan, or you're somebody who's experienced healing. We really want the CPA to be kind of the one broad umbrella where everybody can come and discuss what it's like to work with these medicines.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Does Jazmin want to say anything about that as well? If we can.
Just about the CPA? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm brand new to the CPA, and I'm really looking forward to this sense of like spiritual inclusivity, where it shouldn't really matter how what you believe or anything. We should all be able to partake in using psychedelic for healing in our long term, because there are avenues that we have explored. So I find it very effective and very useful for myself personally. So to be part of the CPA was a wonderful gift that I could express what, the people who work with what they need and how we can, move forward in the psychedelic renaissance.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So 2020, definitely an interesting year. What progresses have you made that you want to share?
You want to go first, Jazmin? How's 2020 been for you?
Yeah, 2020 has been really quite the fun thing. Because wow, like what's going on here? I had my birthday in it was the beginning of March, the week before everything kind of hit the fan. And we had this wonderful party where there was charcuterie and everybody's fingers were everywhere and we were in each other's faces. And I never really appreciated that we'd be so connected and so close that way. And it wasn't until a week later when we were all stopped. Like I was supposed to fly to a number of northern communities for months. And I was grounded, shut completely down. So I wasn't able to I had to find a new way to go do what it is that I do. And it's really hard because what I do is quite physical. 2020, the beginning of it was really, really risky and really hard to get through. Mostly because I suppose there was some inner family turmoil that happened in my vicinity. It was really hard and really troublesome, like even outside of the pandemic, just some really tough stuff that happened in 2020. And it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what it is, but 2020 is a really tough year. But this year I got to purchase land for my healing center. So I think that was the biggest thing, is that soon we're going to have more avenues for psychedelic treatments, because I finally got this property so that we could continue Boom Bay in total faith. And especially now, like our faith has been tested, like our faith in our own knowledge, even the knowledge of others and people that we really relied upon, like in Western medicine. Now everyone's questioning it. Even doesn't matter what you believe, you're questioning it all because you're not sure, especially because of media and things like this. Yeah, mostly is really hard to keep yourself balanced. So what's great about the plants is that we're able to maintain this balance with plants, and they always give us really good avenue to work from. So 2020, really tough year. And I know you all feel it. We all feel it. Obviously, like we're on a phone, like our connection isn't that great. Like this is 2020, and it's okay. We can work with it, right? But yeah, that's 2020 for myself at this moment. But who knows? We still got like a week and a half of it left.
We do. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Trevor?
For me, 2020 has really been just one big lesson, lesson in how to do better, how to find community within, a world where we're not supposed to be in community. And I feel as though it's really been accomplished. For me personally, COVID hit, and I'm here in Vancouver, and the weather was actually really nice in Vancouver at the exact same time that COVID hit. And I'm like, oh, who knew the apocalypse was going to have such great weather? And we got through it, and we started using Zoom a lot more, and we started using Podcast a lot more, and it helped a lot of people innovate. And that innovation, I think, is going to be really good for the planet overall. And it sucks that we're not able to gather together in the numbers we would prefer to through this holiday season. But at the same time, I'm incredibly grateful for technologies like these that allow us to come together and still feel each other at a level. There's been, a lot of attention focused upon aspects of this psychedelic renaissance around inclusion and making sure that everybody has a seat at the table. And I think it is great that we've had focus put upon us. I think I live by a motto Napoleon Hill always said, which was, within every adversity, there's the seed of an equal or greater opportunity. And I think whether it's COVID or whether it's focus being given upon the thing I just mentioned, it's like, all right, these great opportunities to make sure that everybody does get a seat at the table, to make sure that underserved populations do not miss out on this psychedelic renaissance. How do we make these medicines available at a really grassroots level? What can we do to forward this movement in a way that includes everybody? Because I truly feel that these medicines do have the potential to actually heal the world. And I think if we use the current psychedelic community, as modest and as small as we may be, if we really get organized and start delivering the right message and start delivering medicines in a really good way, I think 2020 will prove historically to have been the catalyst that really got our butts in gear to make sure that we do everything properly from now on.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to touch on a few things that you brought up there and a few of my later questions as well. But in regards to the CPA, you guys started a membership plan. You have a webinar series that you have going on. So it's just, adjusting to those things that we can't meet in community, we can't have conferences, but we can be online. So, you're keeping community by doing the things that you're doing at the CPA. What are you excited about, would you say, going into 2021? What's in store for the future? Are there any things you can share with us for that you're allowed to share with us?
Well, so many, and I think I'll inform Jazmin at the same time here that we are doing this incredible webinar series. Like you've done an amazing webinar series for MAPS Canada, Shannon. Thank you so much for doing this. And we've been doing something similar with CPA. And we've already hosted a bunch of great events, and we're going to host a bunch more. Each board member from the CPA has been tasked with coming up with a webinar and hosting it. So Jazmin, I'm telling you right now that you're going to need to come up with a webinar and host it for us, please. And I'm sure you're going to do a kick-ass job. I'm excited. I just spoke to a friend of mine today who is a relatively well-known friend of mine, Dr. Gabor Mate, and he has agreed that sometime early in 2021, him and I are going to have a chat as part of these, as part of this MAPS Canada, or part of the CPA webinar series. So I'm really pumped about that. I think we're going to be able to talk about a lot of cool things. I asked him some time ago if he would please come on and do a webinar. He's like, I've got to finish my book, and he has not finished his book, although he's not technically finished because he says he's got 100,000 too many words. He still has a lot of work to do, but he is willing to hop on a webinar with us sometime soon. So I'm excited about that. He's a man of great wisdom, and we're buddies, so I think it'll be really good repartee between the two of us on a webinar like that. So I'm pretty pumped about that. I'll shut up for a minute and let Jazmin speak about anything she's pumped up about before I continue.
For sure.
For 2021?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping it doesn't fire. I'm just joking around. I hope that I'm going to be able to continue to build the healing center and have something functional for others coming up right away. So to have like cook shacks, we call them, where you would cook plant medicine and I would teach everyone. That's the whole thing. I was listening to a call last Saturday. Maestro Juan Flores was speaking on YouTube, and he gave us the recommendation, all the students and anybody listening, giving the recommendation that we continue to brew plants, continue to teach others how to live well, because the plants are here to help us, and they can always help us. And we're going to need to know that. Every one of us is going to need to know how to use the plants and the trees from our regions. So I think that's definitely, on the forefront. And then also webinar I just heard about as well. We'll have to just think about what you guys want me to throw out there, because I have some great colleagues and really wonderful people that I've worked with in the last 4 years. Because I guess I kind of went full time about 4 years ago, working with the plants, strictly working with the plants and teaching others. So it's just going to be more of that, and I think it's going to be really beneficial to us, because it's not just about psychedelics, what are considered psychedelics, because all plants give particular effects depending on what you're looking for, depending on how much knowledge that you've gathered. So more time you spend with the plants, the more subtle energies come out. So when these subtle energies come out, you see that all the plants can be psychedelic, and all the plants can have a specific effect. So this is something that I hope the psychedelic renaissance will consider, that all the plants have an effect. That's why they're used for us. And we need a lot of knowledge to make sure that we don't hurt ourselves or hurt others while we're trying to practice and learn. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to keep brewing. I'm going to think about this webinar, and I'm going to keep building as much as I can. Yeah.
Beautiful. I have some more things that I'm really pumped about in 2021 is there's a lot of psychedelic corporations that are going public, that have gone public already, and a lot of them, if not all of them, indicate that they would like to have some kind of a pro bono, so for the public good aspect of their business. And one of the things I'm visioning, and this isn't a done deal by any means, there's still a lot of things to work out, but I would like the Canadian Psychedelic Association to have an arm of itself, which is called the Psychedelic Justice League. And the Psychedelic Justice League could be the entity that all of these large corporations send a percentage of their proceeds to in order to corral and focus all of our pro bono initiatives on kind of putting to bed once and for all this idea of psychedelics only being available to the elite, as it were. Really putting all of our funds together to heal the world, to make sure that people who probably need these medicines most get access to them. So I'm pretty pumped about all the potential of all this interest that's coming into the psychedelic space and our ability to really take it to the next level and make sure that no one gets left behind.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. While we're on the topic of the future, there's a question that came in from Sarah. So I'll ask it now. And she asks, what are your visions for the future of the CPA? Do you have any larger goals about how the association seeks to impact society on a structural level? So what are your visions for the future of the CPA? Do you have any larger goals about how the association seeks to impact society on a structural level?
Jazmin, do you want to do some visioning on that first?
Well, yeah. Well, I guess so. It's a tough. That's a real tough question because am I to infer that could mean we're going to start publicly trading stocks in this? You know, those are considerations. Those are just considerations to think about. We're not gonna. Don't assume we're gonna do such a thing.
I'd say no. It's a nonprofit.
Accessibility. I think that's, and you know what, I talked about this, I did an MDMA conference at the beginning of November, and I talked about this accessibility because Trevor's right. A lot of the time, many people that I come in contact with, you say, oh, ayahuasca, that's an elitist, elitist drug. And ayahuasca is droga. It's not a drug. It's a brew. But it is very expensive, especially if you go to the underground where it gets substantially expensive. So it's really tough to reach for somebody that could really use it. I hope that in the future, and I'm not sure about the ayahuasca because that's a South American thing. I hope that the medicines that grow in Canada will be more accessible for others, and they're here. We have them. I've spoken of them. We're just perspectives about getting high might get in the way a little bit. Where we're, many kids just want to get kind of stoned or kind of messed up, and nobody really realizes the impact of psychedelics that way. Like there's, I suppose, a number of different levels of individuals would use the compounds. Well, now I hope that it will integrate into regular daily life, where the West and traditional medicine and Eastern medicine, we all make these considerations. We all make considerations because many of the mental health drugs that many doctors give aren't working, and we need another option. We need another option. We need to try to do our very best to get these options. And I think the CPA, this is the door to assist some underprivileged others. And education, it's all about education. That's my main thing, is to teach how to use plants in a good way, and the plants that are local to us, and plants from all over the world. But teaching, I think, and education is the best method, and it doesn't matter who you are, you can learn it. You don't need a bunch of money to learn. And that's the way things will become more accessible, I believe, is just through education. I don't know, that's what I'm thinking about that.
Cool. Yeah, and I look at I'm excited about the Canadian Psychedelic Association will be opening itself up for a broader membership offering very soon in 2021. So it will be a more robust offering with access to the network we're going to create, with access to the education and materials that we're going to put out. So I'm excited about really solidifying this community and really solidifying the networks that that can come together. Because we do have representatives involved in the CPA from BC all the way out to Newfoundland. So we'd really like to continue to strengthen that, and then keep moving forward on education and advocacy. And you know, these substances still aren't completely legal. A lot of exemptions are being given now, but we need to do a lot more. So we look forward to really continuing that and making sure that these substances do become available.
Mm-hmm. That's great. The next question I have is in regards to how people can actually get involved with the CPA if they want to be involved. So what different ways can they get involved?
Yeah, so the entry-level membership that we've got right now, if you go to psychedeliciassociation.net, you can become a friend of the CPA, and that's with either a $50 or $100 donation. You become a friend of the CPA, and you get some discounts to some conferences and things like that, and get put on our mailing list. And just, it's a great way to be able to show your support. And in the new year, we're going to be having corporate memberships. So if there's corporations that would like to plug into the CPA, they'll be able to do that. We'll be able to have individual memberships, and people can plug in that way. And we'll be able to, again, bring everybody together and make sure that all voices are heard. And, you know, the corporate membership, as an example, there was something that was put out last year called the North Star Pledge, which is basically an ethical pledge around how corporations could operate within the psychedelic paradigm. And it really invites the idea that the whole psychedelic space has an opportunity right now to really develop a new paradigm of doing business. Business is typically known as a cutthroat, competitive way of moving forward in the world, where the psychedelic paradigm invites the fact that really we're all one with each other. And how can we, rather than being competitive, how can we be cooperative? And how can we form alliances towards healing the world at large? And the North Star Pledge, one of the drawbacks of it is people have said that it doesn't have enough teeth. Like corporations say that they take the North Star Pledge, but then not follow through on any of the promises they made. Whereas if we do something like a membership within the CPA, and people who sign up say that they will follow the North Star Pledge, and then if they don't, then we have a vehicle to say, to kind of call them out and say, look, it doesn't look like you are acting in this way. It doesn't look like you are working in the name of the public good, and therefore we're going to kick you out of the CPA. So hopefully that doesn't happen. I really have met so many amazing people within this space who really do. The tides have turned on society, where it's not all about just greed. I think we have to make greed uncool and make giving back a lot cooler. And I think that is happening. And I think becoming part of the CPA is going to allow things like that.
Thanks, Trevor. Does Jazmin have something she wants to say about that?
I think I'm so new, and so I do a lot of time. I spend a lot of time listening to Trevor's perspectives, because he has the experience, I suppose, in. So I really like the idea of the paradigm shift. That's what we need. That's definitely what we need. This is what it is us sitting here speaking about it now. This is part of the shift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, the next question I have for you both, and Trevor, you already touched on this and brought up its importance, but what can we do? What can you do at the CPA to make sure that everyone is at the table? and also to make sure that everyone is served, that the underserved population gets served. So everyone at the table, that means, getting involved with the CPA, diversity, inclusion, and then in regards to serving the underserved population, how do we get access to these people who really need these medicines, who perhaps might not have the means to be able to either A, know about them, or B, have the financial means for them. I know that's a long question, but whoever wants to start can start.
I think I think it has a lot to do with bridge building and building bridges between people who are excited about the healing potential of these substances and communities who could use them but don't necessarily know about them. And that's really what I've been focused on in the last, especially since the summer, is how do we build bridges with those communities that could use these substances. So I've spent quite some time meeting with a group at the Muslim Care Center, which has been set up in Vancouver's downtown east side. They're a group that feeds meals to residents of downtown east side every single night. And I've been speaking to them and educating them on some of the potential benefits of these substances. So it's making roads like that. I've spent time on Indigenous elders' land twice this year in Lillooet, and they are aiming towards building a healing center in Lillooet, BC, and want to use traditional native ways of healing as well as more contemporary means, which may mean psychedelic plant medicines. There isn't actually a historic use in that region and BC generally of using psychedelic plant medicines. So, but they are open to, and I'm not speaking for every community by any means, but there are definitely players within those communities who are interested in the healing potential of these medicines. So it's about building these bridges with different communities and ensuring that even communities like first responders. So one of my dream studies has been how can we use something like MDMA, which is so effective at treating post-traumatic stress disorder? How can we get first responders and physicians who suffer a lot of stress working in the traumatic environments they work in? How can we build bridges into those communities so that people can start using medicines there? And there's the potential that there's a police department in Ontario that is interested in this. So we're setting up meetings to maybe do a phase 2 study along with those police departments. So it's I think that's the mission of MAPS Canada as well as the Canadian Psychedelic Association, is how do we, there's a lot of kind of hippies, as it were, more liberal, left-leaning people who are very open and receptive to the idea of psychedelics as a healing modality. But how do we build bridges towards more right and conservative-leaning communities? Because these medicines have the potential to help every human being. And we're in a time where things like addiction are affecting every community, like depression are affecting every community. So how do we, in a very scientific way, say, look, science is showing that these medicines can help these. So I'll leave it at there. And Jazmin, maybe you can speak about how you build bridges into different communities that wouldn't typically have access to these substances.
Yeah, like this is a tough, it's a big question, especially in my area of the country, like being 2 hours, Winnipeg. It's a very conservative area, especially in the northern communities. The Indigenous people there are very conservative, and people are very Christian as well, very, very religious and very devout. The way I've been able to build bridges with others so that they understand that the plants, specifically just any plant, can help, is that God flows through plants. So it's great about using the word entheogen and theogens are God particles, I guess, is a really good Western definition for that. And I've been doing it the way my teacher told me to do it. He told me to do it poco, little by little. You got to do it little, just little bit by little bit by little bit. And even though I've spent the last 4 years doing just a little bit, I still feel like I have many mountains to go to try to educate individuals on how to use plants. Like I said, the way we serve underserved people is by education. Education is free. The plant medicine is out there. This is our pharmacy when we're in the forest, especially in my area. You know, you walk outside the door, there's a million trees everywhere. I don't live downtown, by the way. I live in a kind of a more rural area of Kenora, but in the center of Kenora, there's quite the sad, underserved people. Like I mean, sad as in the addiction for others is so deep that it doesn't matter what somebody gets high from. But when I see a child that has used solvents to get high, that's heartbreaking. So how do I educate these children about using the plants instead of going to substances? Because many times some of the solvents that people use to get high, they're not as accessible as plant medicine. And the plant medicine are equally as effective, except you destroy your body by their use. So a lot of it is education. And then, you know, I don't want to speak out of turn necessarily to say that, you know, one day if we had a fund or access to funding for us to help the underserved people, so that you could apply, you could say, I need this treatment, can you help me apply for this treatment? I know there's options like through the country to be able to do that for dental work, or if you know, prescriptions, there's options out there. I hope that in the future we would have the options, that we would be able to give the option so that people could reach their hand out. But I'm going to tell you, a lot of the time in addiction, nobody knows even reach. No one is aware that there is a reach. So it's like, we got to teach them to reach out. We just got to teach somebody who's down. It's like, it's okay. My hand is here. I'll help you. Like I think that's what we need to do, is just like Gabber says, as Trevor knows, it's about connection. It's about creating this connection. And I think that's what helped me to recover mostly with ayahuasca, because it's very deep. You deeply connect to everyone that you're with, and everyone that takes it. And you have this unbreakable connection for the rest of your life when you take this medicine. Like that's why I like to think it's the most anti-addictive. I know Ibogaine is excellent as well, but it's just this sense of connection that's created. And I think this is what we need. We need to go more toward that, because it's inclusive of many different cultures in the country. And that's what we have to be aware of as well, is that this sense of connection, everybody has a way in which they do it, and connecting with other communities, even other church groups, and understanding how people, like our education on how others would look at it, I think is really important to understand why someone would be like, no, I'm never taking a psychedelic, or yes, please give me a psychedelic. Like, what are the parameters? I think within the next couple of years, we're all going to be able to see what those parameters are for others, either using them or not using psychedelics. I hope I could just keep going, but I hope that's sufficient for you folks, because I think we need to think about it.
Thanks. Another bridge that I'm keen to build based on what we've been talking about, accessibility, is I am speaking to representatives of the insurance industry. And as an example, the police department I mentioned earlier, I won't say which city in particular, but I'm sure this is common amongst all police departments right now, is the amount of money that the department is paying out in disability for people who are off work for post-traumatic stress-related disorders is as much as the actual salaries for working police right now, if not more. Or, that's just a ballpark thing. But if we can really legitimize these substances, and I was at as mentioned in my bio, I'm featured in a documentary called Dosed, and we showed that movie in Calgary pre-COVID, and there was a bit of a VIP party afterwards, and somebody did a slideshow, and within the slideshow, there was a slide that talked about getting people back to work and how effective psychedelics are at getting people back to work. And I had a friend who was fairly high up at one of the major insurance companies here in Canada. He stood up in the middle of the presentation. He's like, that's the only statistic we talk about in the insurance industry, is getting people back to work. And if we can start convincing, again, more conservative-minded people that this is really good for the bottom line to have people healthy and healed, I think we're going to be able to do incredible stuff. So that's something the CPA, and I know MAPS Canada is focused on as well, and myself personally all the way.
Thank you so much, Trevor. And I know a big thing that came up, and that was community. And that leads into the next question that I have, and it's about community. And the question is, what is the difference between MAPS Canada and the CPA? And how can we all work together? Not just MAPS Canada, not just the CPA, but TheraSil, all of these other organizations. There's new psychedelic organizations starting all over Canada, all over the globe. How can we take the power of one and make it the power of many, and strengthen and form new alliances? Work together.
I think we are the change we want to see in that regard. And I think it has a lot to do with what I've mentioned already about moving beyond a competitive paradigm and instead getting organized around alliances. And that's what I really see even in the corporate world, is how do we create this psychedelic justice league, and perhaps something called the MAPS Canada Research Roundtable, where there's so many researchers across Canada that are diving in to do psychedelic research. How do we get around a table together and say, maybe this guy says he's doing a microdosing study, and then these other people say, yeah, we're going to do a microdosing study too. And then why don't we say, oh, well, actually, we've already got a microdosing study doing. Why don't we instead have you focus on whatever it is, and we pool our resources to make sure that we're not stepping on each other's toes, to make sure that all the most important research projects are getting done. So that's what the CPA and MAPS Canada both are moving towards, is really creating these bonds. And like, I'm very good friends with the guys at TheraSil, and we consult each other. And they've been on your webinar series, they've been on the CPA webinar series. TheraSil is very open to helping other entities move forward. There's a group in Calgary that's trying to get some Section 56s towards using MDMA or using psilocybin to treat COVID-related stresses. And TheraSil has been in talks with them on how to share the resources. TheraSil has mentioned to me that they would like to perhaps use their bureaucratic contacts to help move forward the ability for me to work with Ibogaine here in Canada. So psychedelic means mind or soul manifesting. And one of the primary things that comes up in the psychedelic journey that is very common for many people, not everybody, but is developing this sense of unity. Like, oh my goodness, I am connected to everything. And if I'm in competition with somebody else, I'm actually in competition with myself. If I want somebody else harm, I'm actually, that's as logical as saying I want to harm my own pinky finger. So how do we operate as businesses and communities from that from that mindset that actually we're all one thing. And how do we strengthen each other and embolden each other and actually heal the world? Jazmin?
Oh yeah. Yeah, me and Trevor have spoken about this. We are one thing. When you take any psychedelics, you can see this. This is evident. Many of us feel that way, this sense of connection right away. Like we are one thing. So I like the idea of we are one thing. So we can complement all of our diversities when we come together, using having the psychedelics help us to heal. But I really like that feeling of we are all just one thing. And I'm like neither male nor female nor Anishinaabe or Ukrainian or anything. I'm more than that. Yeah, I that's what I like about psychedelics and how they teach is you just know. You don't need to know anything. They teach you. And I think that's the wonderful gift about it. Definitely. Like I'm pretty much just echoing what Trevor has said. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And that's so beautiful. And I love what you said about, I am more than that, beyond all of this. We are more than that, and we are one. And that's absolutely beautiful. So let's take a question from the crowd. And I did have one other question here to ask you before I let you guys go as well. So we have a question from Carrie. And Carrie says, your visions for a variety of psychedelics ethics boards for public benefit to maintain open science and to avoid profiteering off these medicines. So I guess he's asking for what are your visions for a variety of psychedelics ethics boards for public benefit to maintain open science and to avoid profiteering off these medicines?
For one, I'll just state that I am not against profit itself. I think we are currently within an economic system where if people put in the work, they should be able to reap some reward for that. So there's a difference between that, however, and profiteering, which is, I create something for $1 and I sell it for $6,000, which is, I've seen that within the pharmaceutical space, just ridiculous overpricing of something that doesn't cost that much. But because of supply and demand in particular, they can kind of set that price. So I think creating this alliance that I'm talking about, where these corporations agree to come together to work towards a larger vision and work towards keeping each other accountable. I think that's really all we can do. I don't want to get into some kind of Gestapo type situation where it's a totalitarian iron fist. You've got to do this. You've got to do this. What I would like is, again, just making greed uncool. And I think that's doable. I think that's what the kids are into these days. Is let's just help each other. Let's operate from that psychedelic ethos, which is we are all one thing, and therefore, how do we act as one thing? How do we act in harmony together? Jazmin?
Yeah. Would you restate the question just so I can make
for
sure
sure
that I'm hearing it?
Yeah. What are your visions for a variety of psychedelics ethics boards for public benefit to maintain open science and to avoid profiteering off these medicines?
Yeah, okay. That's a really big one, right? Because see, now psilocybin, like Numinous and Haven, like they're all publicly traded companies. And this is happening with or without us. This is what's going on regardless. So whether you think it's you may think that that's a bad thing or a good thing, this is what's going to push the renaissance. And unfortunately, that's because I don't want it to be greedy, like Trevor is saying. It's not about greed. It's about getting this medicine to the people. And it seems that these publicly traded companies are getting to these people, but do they have ethics boards? You know, I know they have a number of advisory boards, and they have very intelligent doctors and scientists to be able to help formulate this. So I'm sure that everybody's going to be aware. However, it takes us. I think it takes all of our input. So, you know, like going into Numinous or TheraSil and asking the questions or making these suggestions, like having us to become a part of what's going on in the underneath, in that even that stock market, like just so that others are thinking about things that they may not consider. And that's why everybody's really important. Everyone has a really great teaching for us all, because you can all contribute to it. So, you know, that's a really tough question, because everything's already being publicly traded, and it could be greed, and it could be driven by bad things. But then how is it going to push this renaissance through? You know, like, it's just one of the parts of it, and it's nerve-wracking for me, the thought of this publicly traded life. You see what I'm kind of saying?
Mm-hmm. I think the publicly traded companies have a fiduciary duty to be profitable. And sometimes that means being profitable at all costs. It's not about morals or ethics. It's about how can we legally be profitable. And sometimes these companies have enough money so that they can change the laws. So even though it's unethical and they're dumping sludge into the river over there, it's still legal. And if it's not, they can change the laws, and then they're fulfilling their fiduciary duty to be profitable to their shareholders. So I think we need to take a step back and realize that profit can show up in a whole bunch of different ways, and we need to build it into the DNA of the corporations that say, you know what, we do want to be profitable. We do want to show you a return on your investment. We are going to take certain actions, like maybe patenting a certain process that we thought of in order to protect our share of the market. And at the same time, another way we're going to profit is by giving back and by making sure that the communities we live in and the world we live in becomes better because of us doing business.
Absolutely, both great things. And maybe they can get your stamp of approval from the Canadian Psychedelic Association, you know, once they sign your code of ethics and get your stamp of approval. And talking about companies being socially responsible, there's CSR, but maybe there needs to be CPR, corporate psychedelic responsibility. Yeah. And maybe you guys can take that and lead with that. So a lot of great things there. And definitely something I know the CPA can do is the umbrella organization to help support all of these different organizations, profit or non. So there are a million other questions that I can ask you. Is there anything specific that you would like to share before we sign off for the evening? Put you on the spot here.
Yeah, I would just say, you know, I'd like to leave people with words of encouragement and inspiration, and I would encourage everybody to continue to operate from a faith-based way of being. And when I say faith, I don't mean a God in the sky that you pray to that grants you wishes, some genie in the sky. I mean faith as an operating principle, faith being the opposite to fear. So fear is just an expectation, but it's an expectation of a bad thing to come. Whereas faith is just an expectation as well, but it's an expectation of a really good thing to come. And we tend to get what we focus upon. If psychedelics teach anything, they teach us at least something like that. So I would just encourage everybody that's watching to become, if there are things that you see within the world that you feel need to be corrected, I would have faith that we can correct them. And I would encourage everybody to get involved with organizations like MAPS Canada and like the Canadian Psychedelic Association, so we can bring together like minds to create the world that we want to live in. I have tremendous faith we can get there. And I think 2021 is going to be a lot different than 2020. Knock on wood, anyway. Jazmin?
Well, you just took the words right out of my mouth, Trevor.
Yeah.
Faith is everything. Yeah, and that our knowledge of whatever psychedelic that we may use, like that, they would be the guide. Like in the comments on the right here, the psychedelics are the guide. So when we have great faith, as Trevor said, anything is possible. We can't focus on fear. We can't focus on that, especially when it comes to the pandemic. And we have to be faithful that we're going to get there in a really good way. Yeah, that's what and Trevor said it. Faith. It's all about faith.
Love you, sister. Sisters.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much. Is there anything else that you'd like to add here tonight?
I'm good. I would just say, join us, join this movement, get involved, stay involved, help us in any way that you can, whether it's financially or by donating your time or by talking to your friends about the benefits of these substances, whatever it takes, just to help us reach that tipping point where we can make these substances available to everybody that needs them.
For sure. And as a nonprofit, of course, you do fundraising like every other nonprofit. So if there's anyone out there that wants to support the CPA in a larger way and make any kind of a contribution, I know that that's definitely something that would help forward the movement with the CPA as well. So definitely stand up if you have those pockets, and contact Trevor or Jazmin as well. And it can, it can make a difference in so many different ways. So
awesome.
Yeah, well, thank you both. It's been amazing seeing you both and meeting you, Jazmin, and I'm sure we'll see a lot more of you along the way, and looking forward to watching your webinar and seeing what's happening with the CPA going forward as our sister organization here. So thank you guys so much. It's been a pleasure. And like I said, I look forward to seeing what you guys end up doing.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Beautiful. Thank you. Bye, Jazmin. Bye, Shannon.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye, the world.
So as these guys tune off here, I'll just say a few words to wrap up the episode. First of all, I'd like to take this time to say thank you to our speakers, Trevor and Jazmin, from the Canadian Psychedelic Association. Also, thank you to all of you for being here to support this series, the speakers, and of course, this important research. And also, thank you to all of our sponsors. If you haven't checked out the perks page yet, make sure and do so. Let's see if we can get that in the chat here, if we still have the link to the perks page. And our last episode is going to take place next week, December 29th, and that's with Paul Stamets. And we'll also be doing just a really brief, short summary of all of the episodes for you to enjoy, just verbally a recap. And we'll also have a special announcement. So make sure and join us for the last episode next week, December 29th at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And also remember that all episodes are recorded. So if you have some time over the holidays and want to go rewatch all of them, you can just log back into your Crowdcast and do so. So thank you again for attending. We look forward to seeing you all next week, and don't forget to be kind. Bye for now.